generally the category where I got my start was medical devices, right? It's a big category.
Yep.
And specifically in that big multi-billion-dollar market, I was focusing on gastrointestinal products. And as you said, the care site was a lot of times, unfortunately, a very tough site, which is the intensive care unit, where people are really horribly, traumatized and injured and things like that, or post-surgical trauma. And so they can't eat, they can't walk, they're on death's door a lot of times, and things are pretty serious. And so growing up actually selling in that environment where I was just a young buck in these ICUs around the world selling products of various types, and you see these families and these people did not expect to be there that day, if you know what I mean. I became impassioned by, well, how could I help in a better way than just selling medical devices or whatever? So then when I started talking with the doctors, and they would say, well, we can't feed this patient this way. They may aspirate. They may have an inability to swallow their own nutrition. It may go into their lung and kill them. Long story short, I won't get too gruesome, but there were really roadblocks where I was like, well, that can be solved. I think I can invent a new device where we could get around that, anatomically, or maybe with a new approach to getting the catheter inside the body, even in somebody as high risk as intensive care. So I started inventing in my early 20s and reading a lot of medical books on the side, just listening how doctors were using something new, complaining about something new, and wishing they could get something better. And as a young guy, with no education, pretty much an academic dwarf, I got these ideas. And so I was like, okay, I know how to get that product down deeper by the bedside, safely past all these anatomical roadblocks, and we can allow this new type of nutrition to happen, and they'll have better outcomes, and everything will improve. And it was big thinking, but it worked. And so I invented about 10 or 15 different medical devices for feeding intensive care unit patients, burn patients, all different types of intensive care unit patients. Next thing you know, I have to go around the world teaching the doctors how to use these new things, because they were new processes, new techniques, and that was part of the IP. It wasn't just the design; it was also how they were applied and procedurally entered the body. So then something bigger happened in my life, where my older sister, just a couple years older than me, in her 20s, gets a head accident, really bad one, talking coma for 10 years. And her name was Zasi. Her name was Zasi, which is the name of my company's. And that's when I went from entrepreneurial innovation to purpose-driven innovation, where I said, all right, now she's needing these products. All right, they're going to save her. And it did mess me up, seeing my own products inside her and being used for life support. But it kicked off a whole new generation of inventions right after that I ended up going into a whole new area after that.
Wow.
But that's how I got my start. That's how I got my start.
Wow, that's amazing. Honestly, Matt, you can jump in if you got questions. The first one I had was, your story in your 20s. You're selling medical devices. Do you have to have gone to medical school, or do you have to be an MD to do that? And are you trained in that? Great
question. I think, in hindsight, of course, no. I was lucky enough to get in as an 18-year-old in a machine shop in a medical device company that was small, maybe 50 people, so I could see all the departments and how things worked, like R&D and manufacturing, quality assurance, and all that stuff. And then I just got out in the field early enough to start interacting with physicians, where they were, as I said, trying to solve problems, complaining about products. And just as a young gun, you just can't help but be creative. And so no training, but I did realize early I needed to read these medical books. So I would go home from college courses at night at a community college, and I would read like endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography and all these cool procedures, and I just got lost in it and was writing down every other word, and then learning, and before I knew it, I became quite fluent, and I could go toe to toe with these physicians, show them my new designs. They would co-design with me a little bit sometimes, like Duke University, MIT, Pennsylvania, they all co-invented with me, and we brought a whole series of devices together to the market together, got them through FDA, and then I became then I started my own companies, actually, where I did this for my own companies.
Where's that passion come from? I mean, was it all financial kind of thing through your own company? Were they incentivizing that inspiration or innovation, I should say?
I'll say two things. For first one was reverse nepotism, because the small company I worked for at age 18 was founded by my father, who thought I was an academic idiot. He wasn't wrong, actually. But so I learned I had to be way better than everybody in the company. I had to invent. I had to go to that holy ground of invention, because I knew if I could do that, then they wouldn't say, "Oh, he's just the boss's son," right? So that really gave me a drive. But then when my sister,
so there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, a little bit of that made that prove them wrong thing.
I mean, I was working with MBAs and PhDs, and I'm going to community college getting Ds, at night. So I had to do something, right? But then it became personal, of course, when my sister got hurt, and that opened up another flurry of innovation and drive.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you had basically, you were working at least with one other person on most all of these projects and inventions. Is that right?
It takes a village to get them through the 1 to 7 year product development timeframe. That's why patents are so important to us, because we need that time to protect our idea, as you know well, to make sure we can get through this multi-year product development timeline and then have 10 years in the market as well. Yes. So I would say I was inventing alone in most cases, but then I would get my inventions validated by top surgeons and doctors around the world. And then I would have it built by engineers and people much smarter than me than that. And they would take my design to, of course, the CAD/CAM level. I was doing chicken scratch design.
Okay, I'd love to spend some time on that validation, because we have clients that are active, real clients right now in that pre-validation. They've done their own prototypes. Maybe not even that. It's too expensive or too arduous to get a prototype out. And we're trying to point them in the right direction to get funding, going to universities, research institutes. How did you how do you get that connection for that validation?
Depending on what my specific device did at the time, I would look at the journals, the medical journals, especially the peer-reviewed ones. I would find out who were the big 10, 15 doctors, if you will, in the United States in that lane, publishing on that lane, right? And then I would go to the conferences where they're at, these medical conferences, and I would literally, they're on the podium. I'd be in the first guy in line, waiting for them to come down after talking their thing. I had my pad, and I plead with them to give me 2 minutes. And then next thing I know, they're like, damn, this could work. How are you? But they're like, this could work. Next thing I know, they're talking with me, then they're endorsing it. Then they're helping me, refine it. And then they're, of course, helping me test it on either synthetic testing or animal laboratory testing, and then cadaver testing, and then human testing.
Okay, I'm gonna break that down. So you did the research to find out who cares the most about what you're inventing. You physically found where they're at and hunted them down, presented your solution, and began working with them.
Yeah.
I can't repeat that enough. I mean, you had a major fire in your belly, right? As Sylvester Stallone says. I mean, you were going to make this happen no matter what.
Oh yeah, no matter what. Because I knew people were dying without it. But my market is easy, because if you know your device can do 10% more, 15, 20% more of whatever is causing an issue, a medical issue, and you can not even be a life-saving medical issue, you're not going to stop. You're going to get it on the market, even if it kills you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you're a serial inventor. To me, that means you must have at least had one payday, right? Financial reward, maybe more philanthropic, but walk us through some of those wins, not necessarily numbers, but I want to say, how does that happen? How did you make money with your first one or two?
Well, you're right. With the first inventions, they were all owned by my employer. That was the case for this family-owned company. It was also the case with a $18 million drug company that bought products. I invented for them as well, but they gave me $1 for the plaque. As you know, that's all you get. They owned all my IP. But then I did have IP that I created before those employments. I formally reserved them on the side in writing as being invented prior to my employment. And I put them off to the side for a couple of years while I worked for these big companies, got my synthetic MBA, because again, I did hardly any schooling. And then I went back, and then I found that the distributors that were selling my products in the past, they were actually sales teams and distributors. I went to them and I said, would you back me? You've been successfully selling my products before. Would you back me if I form a company and do it on my own? And a couple of them said yes, and they coughed up $500,000 over a year and a half. And they moved me to Florida, and they on a handshake, we did it. I quit the big $18 billion company, started my own called Saskia Medical. I named it after my sister. That was her. Her name was Saskia. And we called her Zasi. And that was my seed money. And then we're off and running. And then, of course, next thing I did, I made sure every design there was validated by these doctor types I told you about. So you got prestige around the design validation. You get the patent pending, which is key. The claims look strong, which I get. You guys better be the claim has to be wickedly strong. They got to endure for 20 years. 5 years of that being developed. And then of course, I went and got distribution by some of the largest medical companies in the world who licensed the patent. And then eventually they bought my companies, and I did that a few times.
Got it. And that's that was a lot. That was a lot. Now you're still
He's a busy guy.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. Zasi is still an active thing. Is that right?
Okay. Yes, that's interesting, because I think you guys would dig this one, because it's not about patents, But I created that pre-LinkedIn. I launched it in 2002, and what it would allow disclosure of IP without the claim and the confidentiality elements. It would allow safe disclosure through a Q&A process so that a big drug company or medical device company could actually look at a doctor's invention, not sign an NDA, but pull out enough of the attributes and traits of the design and its capabilities without disclosing the secret sauce. And then the parties, it would be matched based on all that criteria. So I created a matching engine with early AI, early natural language processing. And that's what Easasi is right now. It's actually a disclosure for non-solicited ideas into big companies who are seeking new outside external innovation from inventors, but allows a safe way for inventors to disclose their idea and have it matched up with the business development people at the company.
Okay, Peter. What? Okay, hold on. This is how do you?
I'm tagging what you're mowing, Peter.
You get it, right?
How do you disclose an invention without the secret sauce? What meat is there?
Well, I mean, then I would say put your business development hat on. Like you're the guy looking at deals day after day, right? You're looking at companies day after day. So you look at the idea and you go, okay, first off, what stage of development is it? Is it a 510K? Is it a drug? Is it a PMA? What level of risk is this thing? Where's their testing? Has it been in humans, animals, synthetic, or not? Is there revenue? You have all these. You have a checklist of 100 things that if it ties up 80%, you'll take it inside the company. You'll go NDA and you'll take a serious shot at making a deal. But it's that previous part that it's too much work, and the doctor doesn't know what he's doing. The doctor doesn't know how to put all that in a business plan. And so I built a software system that was one of the first AIs where it would allow through a Q&A, it would extract the information through multiple choice answers and things like that, where it would spit out a report like a pitch book or patent landscape report and tell them not the claims, not what is claimed or what is novel, but is it a life-saving claim? Is it a durability claim? Is it companies look at claims by what they do. Is it a manufacturing claim? You see what I'm saying? So it was enough. It's enough to wet their beak.
So sort of characteristics, descriptive parts, aspects, like an abstract of the invention, if you will. Cool, very cool.
And now I'm in AI, so now I'm wrestling with what you guys are. I'm sure now with my newer venture, I'm in healthcare data and AI, and we're all sitting back trying to understand when to patent that stuff, when not to, how fast that's moving, and so now I'm considering. I have some patents in the work there, but we're also tentative about doing them because by the time they get issued, you wonder if the technology is going to be already something new.
Yeah, right. Okay. And do you have you gone with counsel, or have you gotten educated so much on your own you've been comfortable filing on your own?
I've never filed completely on my own, but I'll do some provisional work, but then I'll always use outside expertise like you guys for sure. 100%. You got to get it right.
Wonderful. Got it. And in terms of the current plan, do you have a company? Is it still the Easasi, or are you still preformed?
Currently, I'm president and CEO of a company called Persone Analytics, and it's based in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's got a really revolutionary platform to kind of ingest all our disparate healthcare data. Like, for instance, you have healthcare data from 10 years ago at your, podiatrist or your pediatric, or your, if you're older, you have a nursing home, and all the data is in separate, disparate pockets all around us. It's not longitudinally aligned, and therefore AI can't go in there and customize medicine for you because it doesn't understand what happened to you 5-10 years ago. So we actually built a chassis that can ingest all this different disparate healthcare data and then create a platform for personalized medicine around you and about your journey and your healthcare needs.
Well, it sure sounds like my charts-ish, but maybe one or two layers more technical in terms of what physicians can do. Pretty cool. Well, what are your biggest hurdles there? What are some of the issues you're battling with without disclosing anything confidential? Are there technical hurdles, or is it more just buy-in? What do you need?
I think that with healthcare data, of course, HIPAA is a big deal. Privacy, cybersecurity is a huge deal. So you can't just build in the capability of the AI and the analytics. You have to actually build in equal layers of cybersecurity and protection from HIPAA and make sure that data never gets out. It is among the most valuable data. I mean, you can imagine if your DNA is in a database and we know what makes you sick, Matt, versus you, and that gets out, internationally. I mean, that's the kind of thing that could improve on a COVID a virus, right? If you want to understand how to make that more impactful, you would look at the engineering of everyone's DNA and how they succumb to illness. So we really are under a high threshold to make sure the data we ingest is protected, and it's really at odds. They don't want to share, but you need it to be shared, and no one wants it shared, but yet they all know it should be shared so that we can have more personalized medicine and better care.
You are a serial entrepreneur, and yeah, some really cool ideas. I really like the idea of using AI to match company needs with potential solutions, right? Without necessarily disclosing the invention, but matching those two up based on needs and, abilities, I guess, or, what's been filed.
And think about like even the whole ecosystem. So for instance, if I know that this doctor's device has a balloon on it for anchoring or is made of certain material here, I can take those same attributes and traits and match them with a proper manufacturing or a proper prototype house. So really it was designed to take the whole medical device ecosystem, even the venture capitalists. If I know it's a urological catheter and this venture firm does urological investments, I can make those connections.
Sure.
So it was a really way to kind of get an auto recommendation engine and match people up faster to speed innovation up. And here's the real key why. So my sister, I was racing to get this one product out, this catheter that you mentioned earlier on, which would have stopped infections that she was getting chronically from intestinal bacteria. And she's bedridden, of course. And I raced to get it through FDA and get it out. And it was 2 months too late from her, and I couldn't experiment on her. Of course, that would not be correct. So other patients got the benefit of it during the testing phase, but I got it out to market 2 months too late after FDA approval. And that's when I was like, I really need to build a software as a service company that can speed up innovation in medical devices.
Cool. Love it.
Can we spend a little bit of time on the FDA component? I mean, I assume you've gotten pretty darn familiar with that.
Sure.
Let's say a first-time inventor in a medical device space, how do they know whether to do a 510 or not? What resources would you recommend they go to if they're just beginning that journey?
You mean specifically to FDA classification and things like that?
Yes.
My engine did that. So that was one of the things I did in my EZOSI module. It actually calculated that for you. So you would answer about 20 questions about your invention, and it would tell you what your FDA classification was and what your CE mark would be, what classification you'd be in Europe and what classification you would be in Japan. So I'm sure it's not the only one anymore. This is going back 15, 20 years. But I think you have AI now that can calculate that. But of course, the FDA has made themselves available now to inventors to actually talk to you about that and help you through that, especially since there's a real convergence now of Internet of Things, drug device combinations, and the lines are blurred now to understand what classification you really fall into. It's more complex with all these technologies converging. And so I think everyone needs a little more help than ever to figure that part out and get it right. Because if you classify yourself incorrectly with the FDA, then you're not going to get very far.
So from here, if you're looking to get started, obviously this is, huge
Yes.
website. You said it's a Q&A portion. Do you still own a part of this company you're saying?
I own a part, yeah. I'm not actually part of the operations since 2017, but I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the name, very proud of what it's done. And I'm obviously the architect of most of everything it's doing, but it's out there for everybody. It helps companies, big and small, and it helps inventors.
Wow. Okay. Break it down for me. How would I get started on this? If I've got an invention, I want to see it's a medical device, right? I want to see,
Well, you can see some of their clients at the bottom. So these clients use it for what's called external innovation. So basically, as you guys know, even the biggest of the big companies have to look outside their walls to find some breakthroughs. They're typically pretty good at incremental innovation, but they're typically pretty bad at breakthrough blue sky innovation. So what they do, and then they also have challenges internally that they can't solve. They may have this manufacturing issue, or they may have this design issue and they can't solve it with their internal resources. So they hire companies like EZOSI to go out there and solicit inventors from the outside all around the world to address these technical challenges that these clients have. And then they get to submit potential solutions to these challenges, and then of course make deals together and hopefully grow something big together.
Yeah, right. So it's almost like brokering, finding finding the problems people don't have answers to.
Mm-hmm.
So then the problem solvers can go figure it out.
That's right.
That's so proud. How long ago did you develop that?
I launched that. That was what's called an open innovation company. I launched it. I was building in 2000, from 2000 to 2006. So 2006, it was mature enough to go off on its own, and I spun it out of Zosi Medical at the time.
That's incredible. So cool. Thank you for sharing that.